And Brandon, now we get to talk about the team I have waited for. This team should really have been the last team. However, they didn't win the Pac-12 South, so technically they can't be the last team. That will be Colorado. However, we get to talk about the USC Trojans. And this one, much like the UCLA Bruins, we have an easy starting point here. Nothing to get too excited about or too what are we going to, what's the first starting point for this one? The first starting point is Sam Darnold. Coming into his redshirt sophomore season with the Trojans. Last year, just over 3,000 yards, 31 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. I'm going to ask you this. I'm just going to be frank. What's the percentage, or should Trojan fans be thinking college football playoff with Darnold from week 1?
Yeah, there's no reason why they shouldn't be. He gave them all that hope and all that excitement and the belief in a college football playoff in that Rose Bowl game. That's what he did. He was doing it probably well before that, but he certainly solidified it.
The most exciting postseason game that we saw last year outside of the national championship.
I don't see how a USC fan doesn't come into this season with complete confidence that you're going to get there.
I do, and I'm not even a USC fan because I'm looking at the schedule right now, and I know that usually before we get into the schedule, we talk about what other pieces do they have? But this team, to me, the only games I worry about are UCLA at the end of the year, Texas on September 16th, and Stanford on September 9th. Because Western Michigan, if PJ Fleck was still there, I might have been like, well, you know what? That might be a game. I don't think Western Michigan stands a chance. Stanford could be tough just because Stanford, are they going to be mediocre or are they going to be one of the top teams in the Pac-12? I don't quite know yet this year. Texas, what are they going to be under Tom Herman in year 1? The rest of the schedule until USC at the end of the year, I could see being wins all the way down the schedule for the Trojans because I know they beat them last year, but what team do they not have on the schedule this year and will not face them unless they see them in the Pac-12 title game? The Huskies. They don't have the Huskies this year. They don't have to worry about Jake Browning and Washington. They can say, you know what, we'll focus on our side. We'll see you in the Pac-12 title game if you get there.
See, I don't have the same concern with Texas that you do. The team that stands out to me is Stanford at the beginning of the season and then UCLA at the end. I don't see another team in there that's going to really put up a whole mess of a fight. Utah could be interesting just because of how Utah played them last year.
Like we said, I will give respect to Utah. They have beaten them twice in the past 3 years.
But Texas, Tom Herman's still working with Charlie Strong's guys, and I just don't see Texas being all that big of a threat to USC.
All that in a bag of potato chips?
I'd like to say that Notre Dame might give them a game, but that's just not going to happen. We know that.
And that's usually a big rivalry game between the two.
Yeah, well, it probably won't be. It won't be. But Stanford, Utah, and UCLA, those are the 3 contests that USC is going to have the biggest tests. And it's going to be really interesting. And we haven't even talked about Stanford yet, but UCLA, that is the game that I would look at as the most exciting game on this schedule for USC because, like you said, it's going to be Darnold v. Rosen. Hopefully, if he's not injured. But that is going to be, you assume he's going to have a very good, healthy season. And those two guys meet up at the very end. And if things go well, like we think that they could go for UCLA with a healthy Rosen the entire season, and you have Darnold go a full healthy season, these two guys meet up. It could potentially be number 1 v. number 2 picks in the draft. It very well could be.
Depending on how Josh Allen is.
Yeah, throw him out of this conversation. But this could be a huge game.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be the battle of LA. And I think that it ends up being and having a huge impact on the rest of, I say the rest of the season, but where those teams go then.
No, and
who wins that side?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to end up being in the Pac-12 championship game?
Mm-hmm.
And then who ends up going to the playoff?
Well, and the thing I wanted to touch on with that when it comes to USC is not only am I really high on the Trojans, like I told you coming into recording this segment that although we have not made our official predictions, I'm starting to think about teams that I could see in the college football playoff. And based off of right now kind of my 1.0 in my head, I'm kind of coming up with divisions that I could see getting college football playoff team from. The SEC will have one, will most likely be Alabama. The Big Ten will have one, whether it's Ohio State, Penn State, or Michigan. The Pac-12 should have one, whether it's UCLA, USC, or Washington. And then to me, the other one, I'm going to say maybe it's a toss-up between the ACC and the Big 12. Me leaning a little bit more towards an ACC team getting through. I might be riding Miami a little bit in there. I'm not quite sure. But the thing with USC, they are my favorite Pac-12 team when it comes to the college football playoff race. And the majority of it is because of this schedule that we've talked about. Not only do they have the guy who is going to be an early favorite for the Heisman, he's right now in way too early as he is the number one pick in the NFL draft, but Coach Clay Helton has also done a great job recruiting. He's had 2 straight top 10 classes, and because the Trojans have been freed of their NCAA sanctions, they have a chance to go to the college football playoff. And I think that the schedule matched up with the recruiting classes that he's able to put together because of being freed of the sanctions is going to be the driving force for this USC team. And I kind of have a feeling that if they do not make the playoffs, I'm going to stop myself before I say this. If they do not make the Pac-12 championship game, it will be a failure in the eyes of Trojan fans, because that will either mean they have lost more than one Pac-12 conference game, or they lost to UCLA at the end of the year, and that's what kept them out. The only thing that would not be a failure completely is if they went to the Pac-12 title and lost a thrilling game to, let's say, a Washington who could be there, or let's say a Stanford or somebody coming over from the north. But this team, to me, Pac-12 side of it, is really they're in the driver's seat to get to the conference title game and could be in the driver's seat to get to the college football playoff from the Pac-12.
This is a team that has just so much potential, and there's so much excitement and buzz around this team again. And a year ago, I mean, I think, obviously we were in a different position. We were talking about Max Brown and the potential that he would be able to have for this team. He's now with Pitt. He's not even on USC anymore. And you have to take a look at Sam Darnold, and his stats aren't even for a completely full season. He wasn't the starter from day one. And he's still over 3,000 yards and 31 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. And that was with him slinging the football all over the field. And I really do believe that for Sam Darnold to really take it to the next level, what he'll want to do is he'll want to just a very small notch, be a bit more conservative. I mean, as we even saw with both him and McSorley from Penn State, is they were just slinging the ball all over the place. And there were some interceptions on both sides. For Darnold to just cut down on that just a little bit and maybe hold on to the football just a second longer. And it's not because he threw too many interceptions. He only threw 9 interceptions to 31 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But for him to take that next step, that's what I think he's going to want to do. Be just a bit more concerned. I mean, not even a lot. Just maybe a half a notch. And that's for him to not feel like he has to sling the football all over the place. For him to feel like he doesn't have to, throw that ball into a double coverage. Maybe you just pull down and run for a couple of yards, or maybe you go for the underneath look. And that's just what you're going to do as you grow up, as you mature, and everything like that as a quarterback. That's what you're going to start to do. But for him too, that he's going to be able to have some time, because USC gave up only 12 sacks on the season. 12 sacks on the season. Now, some of those guys from that offensive line are gone. But if they're able to have anywhere near the success that they did last year on that offensive line, only 12 sacks, that's so impressive.
And that's the thing I wanted to throw out.
He's going to be safe, and he's going to have the time to be able to do what he needs to do, to go through his reads, to look at his deep route. Okay, double covered. Come back. Who's the underneath route? Who do I want to go as on the shorter, on a curl route, something like that? You have the time to be able to do that.
And the one thing I wanted to throw out was they do lose 4 key starters on this offense. 2 offensive linemen, 2 wide receivers, where you have starting tackles Zach Banner and Chad Wheeler. Zach Banner is now in the NFL. And then receivers, you have Juju Smith-Schuster, NFL, and Darius Rogers. They're all gone. So you lose the 2 guys, Banner being the more profound one, because he was the one that everyone was talking about. NFL draft buzz that played into those sack numbers being so low against the offense. But really, this offense, the biggest thing that they will have to overcome is the wide receiver position, because you have Darnold coming back. Running back wise, you have Ronald Jones II, or RJ2 as I'm going to call him all year. He comes back, you're fine. You're solidified at the running back position. To me, it comes to Deontay Burnett, Michael Pittman, and Velus Jones. Can two of you guys step up and give the production that we saw from Juju Smith and Darius Rogers last year to be the top two of the top 2 guys that Darnold can throw to? Because if he doesn't have anyone that can throw to, we could talk college football playoff till we're blue in the face. Also, defensively, the thing I wanted to mention was my biggest concern defensively is the nose tackle position. They lose a guy who came over from Utah as a graduate transfer, solidified double teams last season for the offensive line. Basically, when you solidify double teams, you're opening the line up for other guys to slide through, basically because you're taking up 2 people and not 1. And it's going to be the question of who is going to take over, because there's 2 guys. There's Kenny Bajello, however, he's coming off of an ACL injury, but then there's Marion Tupalutu, who he's a true freshman coming in. So really, that's the only thing defensively I look at is, do you go with the true freshman? Will the guy coming off the ACL injury step up? That nose tackle position on defense is the big one that I could see being, you're probably going to rotate them to see which one it is that's your nose tackle, but they're going to need someone to be on that defensive side, taking up some double teams to open up those lanes so that they can get to the quarterback, get to the running back.
And the part of the defense that's still going to be strong even after losing Adoree Jackson is going to be in the secondary at the cornerback position, because then Amon Marshall just moves over. And doesn't have to move over, but you had him on the other side that you look at and go, okay, he's going to slot into the number 1 position now. And they'll be fine. They may not have that same spark that they had with Adoree Jackson, but they're still going to be a good secondary. I think they're still going to have a lot of really good talent, and that's going to be their strength defensively, should be. But with what you just said, it's a concern, but it's not something that you go, they're going to just fall apart defensively.
It's nothing like Arizona and Arizona State where we're like, crap, their secondary is nothing and we're panicking about it. But I look at it and I go, it's nice to have that guy that can take double teams away from an offensive line and open up holes so that you can get guys flustered and throw them into mistakes against your loaded secondary.
What USC is going to have to do is they're going to have to get more of a pass rush. They only had 26 sacks last year, which was the fewest since 2010 when they had 27. And in 2015, they had 37 sacks. So they need to be able to get to the quarterback. And that kind of goes along with exactly what you're saying, is get to the quarterback, and whether you're sacking him or just forcing the quarterback to throw a pass that he doesn't really want to throw but does it anyways because of the pressure, that's what they need to be able to do. And if they can do that, then they're going to have success on the defensive side of the football because of the fact that that secondary is going to still be a very solid unit.
Well, and that's what you see a lot from quarterbacks, unless it's like the guys like the one that I always knew that was the best at it, and he's still good with it in the NFL, is Andrew Luck, where there's not a lot of quarterbacks that sense the pressure, roll out, throw it away, live to see another down. You either fall into two categories. There's guys that want to stay in that pocket long enough. The guy that did the best, Peyton Manning, another guy who was successful in the NFL, where I'm going to stay, throw it, and then get hit. However, some guys hold on to it too long and take the sack. There are other guys that get flustered by it. Oh, I got to throw it. They throw it quicker than they want to, leads to turnovers, tip passes, deflected balls, this, that, and the other, so that they are not able to throw the passes that they want to. And I don't see a lot of quarterbacks, other than maybe Josh Rosen, having that sense of mind to be the guy that's not going to either be A or B, holding on to the ball too long or throwing it away into a defender's hands.
And then for this team, I think that success for them is winning their side of the conference, winning the Pac-12 altogether, and making it to the college football playoff.
No.
If you have anything less than the college football playoff this year, it is not a winning season for you.
Here's the thing I'm going to ask you, though, and this will go back to something I said earlier in this part of the preview, is, of course, college football playoff is on the mind. That's the goal. However, let's say you go to a Pac-12 title game. You play a phenomenal game against Washington. You lose on a last-second field goal. Are you sitting there going, complete failure? Are you saying, you know what, we failed at our goal, but this was still a successful season?
No, you're a fan. You want the college football playoff. And don't give me these theoreticals. I'm not going to answer them.
What if you're not a fan? What if you're a player?
Not going to answer them.
So it's a complete waste if you don't get to the college football playoff?
Yes.
I'm going to go on the other side. That's the goal.
I think that
they can have a successful season without getting there.
Yes, but still, I think that a fan, a player, they're going to be like, yeah, great. We had we had a great win here. We had a great win here. That doesn't mean anything. We didn't make it to the college football playoff. We might as well just lost those and just have the season done before we had to be crushed here at the end. That's I think how a player would look at it. Great. We had another nice season. And guess what we got to? A bowl game that means nothing.
And then they go play Penn State and they give us one of the best performances ever. But
the Rose Bowl is not a bowl game that means nothing. But if you go and you're in the TurboTax Bowl, that doesn't mean a whole lot.
Let's be honest. If they lose to Washington and Washington goes to the college football playoff and they don't, USC is going to be in the Rose Bowl because the Pac-12 team's always in the Rose Bowl.
True, but still what I'm saying is the point is you didn't make it to your goal.
You do want, I will say this, you do want the college football playoff, and this is a team that I'm going to say 85% at the least chance for me to make the college football playoff. And when we do make our predictions, they're probably going to be a team that I put into one of the slots for my college football playoff predictions. But we want to turn it on to you guys. Let us know, what are your odds of them making the college football playoff? What do you look at is going to be the strength for USC? What's not going to be the strength for them? How do you see this season playing out for the Trojans? Let us know down below in the comment section.